even though I love to write, what collaging does for me is that it is a boppy, nonverbal medium, and it gives a break for my verbal brain. But I think when I was finishing this up, I wanted Tim Gunn in fashion says, like, your hand should show in the outfit. It doesn't show in this outfit, but you can roll up a sleeve, or you can, roll up the cuff of your pants to show your hand in the outfit. And so I wanted my hand to show in the piece by putting some handwriting on it. So demanding more than representation alone, pushing beyond the obvious, refusing to settle for cosmetic pacifiers, and instead insisting on meaningful change. Phrases like that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing, a podcast all about creativity. Today, we have a special guest. I connected with this person through the power of social media, through TikTok. I would like to welcome to the podcast our special guest for today, Mon. Mon, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ryan, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. I connected with you on social media, on TikTok. You're a lively person. I follow your live streams. But one day you were talking about perhaps writing a book, and then you were sharing about doing collages. And as I follow your lives, and not only your live streams, but also some of your content, not only on TikTok, but also outside, we have like Substack. I see that there's more to you than meets the eye, a creative person. And I am just so excited to explore your creative universe. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so, well, I always like to start off by asking the guest, what was it in life that actually sparked your love for creativity? And in your case, let's stick first with writing.
Yeah, I'd say with writing, maybe from like an elementary school onward standpoint, it was a way to make friends with myself and find peace inside my own brain and kind of quiet that chaos. Like when you go back to your own room and you're sort of sorting through that mess that kind of goes on inside your own head and trying to make your own head a pleasant place. And, if you're a 90s kid and you don't have that kind of dissociative screen yet, even to use that for, or to sort of use to distract your brain from itself, you've really just got your creativity, which is not to say that if you're an iPad baby, you are unable to create that. You can also use screen for these purposes. But I think the way that I fell in love with creativity was using pen and paper or using toys to create stories and worlds, and using pen and paper to draw or to write, or to write fiction, to write my life, or to cartoon my life or fantasies, and to try to make my head a pleasant place to be when it wasn't.
Would you say that you fell in love first with writing or reading? And I ask because sometimes when I'm in your live streams, you're talking about some books that you're currently reading. So just wondering.
Yeah. So my folks tell stories about my performing reading before I even learned to actually read in earnest. So maybe the answer is reading, because I don't have any stories about my performing writing before I could write in earnest. So maybe the answer is reading. Like I would perform the act of reading. So I would ask books to be read to me a number of times, and like, oh, can you read this book to me? Can you read this book to me? Until I would memorize the book, apparently. And then I would be like, guys, can I read this book to you? The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. And then I knew I would like take note of when people would flip the pages and what they would say on each page. And then I would perform reading the book, knew what to say on each page, and then flip the page at the right time, such that people would be like, this bitch can read. Oh my God. And I'd be like, I'm fucking 3. I could not read. Poser. So I guess the answer is reading.
Oh, cool. But you did eventually start falling in love with writing. Do you remember any of your first stories?
Yeah. And some of them were even tiny graphic sagas involving like poodles that fell in love. I never had a dog, wanted one real bad. Heckin, or like friend dramas. I think some of my first stories, because some of the first dramas you experience are friend dramas in a life. I care a lot about that. I think there need to be more narratives out there about the romance and heartbreak of friend dramas in a life. And so I think I would like cartoon and write a lot about friend dramas. So let's draw like this is a group of friends, but this friend betrayed this friend, you know? That was some of my first like elementary school writing. Or my friends and I remember my best friend, shout out Amelia. I hope she sees this one day. Amelia, that is one of my greatest regrets is betraying you when we were 14. Okay, anyway. I had a best friend from when I was like 8 to when I was 13, 14, and I betrayed her in pursuit of popularity, and it's a great regret of my life. Okay, anyway. Point is, yeah, those were some of my early writings. Amelia and I would play like with our Build-A-Bears, the Bear OC, where it would just be like this bear got pregnant off that bear and ran away to hide it from him so that he wouldn't be embarrassed but would still love her. Anyway, whatever. Those were some of my first narratives.
Wow. So, okay. So you started off loving to hear people read you stories. You're already memorizing it. And then you start getting into this friend drama. What happened next?
So late elementary school, they started introducing to us the idea of like theater and scripts in the context of like learning history, George Washington, the American Revolution, and they would ask us to form a group and write a sketch or a skit. And I would actually remember, wow, you're unlocking my memory, that there was one instance where we were asked to write, a drama, a short drama, and I wanted it to be funny, and I was instructed to make it less funny. Mrs. Ogborn, I don't know if she's still alive, rip if she's not for real, and I remember printing it in neon. Each character was like a different, and it was in an absolute cunty font when it had no business being that, but it was in like an all caps kind of whatever. Anyway, point is, and everybody was like a different president. But that's when I started being like, oh, it is fun to write in a dramatic format. And I think when I was around 8, I started doing sort of like, Mom, can I take the acting class with like a single digit number of girls in it that was offered at like the ballet school in the county or whatever? I was never one of these sort of like actual child actor types, but I loved going to like the summer theater camp at the community college and whatever. I just loved being dramatic. I was a
Okay.
moody kid.
So, okay, what I'm hearing is we're seeing the evolution of Mon, of your creative journey. This is your life, and this is what I love to do, is to explore it. And in this part of your story, you're getting into theater. Did that also include singing?
It didn't. Apparently, I tried, and I have a vague memory of this, that I tried the chorus for a little while, and but it was at the church. And I guess from a young age, I had sort of an on off sort of something is off about this. And I respect faith a lot now. But I just always had something of a off feeling in my bones, organs, muscles about the church growing up. It just wasn't, it didn't hit right. And I think that it can hit right for people there can be certain congregations, denominations, iterations of faith and Christianity that hit right for people. Um, fans that do it right. It's not that mine did it wrong. I love my folks. I love my family. Their intentions with it were great. I just the certain interaction of singing being introduced to me in the context of the way that that church iterated its Christianity and the certain kinds of your classic kind of, I mean, Presbyterianism is by definition Calvinist and, restrictive, and it has its relationships to gender and sex and uh, joy and enjoyment of what I consider some of the joys of living. And even baby me did not rock with that. And so the interaction of singing being introduced to me in that context put singing in my Jungian shadow bag. So.
Okay, so singing wasn't that much of a big thing for you with
No, I'm only rediscovering it now.
with the church. Okay, but now you're rediscovering it.
Mm.
We'll get to that
Yeah.
in a moment. But going back, you're in, I think, was it still elementary when you were
Yeah.
doing theater?
Yeah.
Okay, then high school, where was your creativity focused on? Was it still writing? Were you making stories or somewhere else?
Yeah, yeah. All through middle school, kept creative writing in every format, discovered poetry, uh, kept writing scripts, like wrote plays for girls to perform, and kept acting. And then all through high school, same, kept acting, would sort of take leads in plays that were the straight plays, like the black box plays, not the musicals, and then would I didn't do any playwriting in high school because there wasn't really so much an outlet for that. There should be. I hope there is now at that high school because they offer a lot of cool programming. Uh, and endeavored in some visual art in high school, especially photography, mixed media, as you can tell with the collage, the assemblage type things. And then assemblage being like 3D collage, a little bit of sort of sculptural element, found sculpture. Anyway, point being, the writing is what I really got into, and sort of, there was one teacher in my high school, shout out Deborah McKay, who introduced us to a sort of, there was a seminar for avant-garde writing, and she just really encouraged us. She sort of encouraged us to create like a binder of found objects and encouraged us to get really explicit, disgusting, graphic, outlandish with what we wrote in that journal and read it out loud to the class, like every grotesque word we could say, and loved it, ate it up. Yeah, and then I played jazz piano and would co-write pieces with my teacher. There are stories there. We don't have time for them. And but I did write my college essay about it and it did work. And yeah, no, that got me. I played piano my whole life. Yeah, there's it just kind of I love famously I explore everything, not famously. I'm nascent on the internet.
One way that I see myself sometimes is I'll imagine if I were in the past, who are some of the creative people I wish I could have interviewed, but they're gone, they're dead. And I think, well, I have this opportunity to speak with creatives of today, and I feel like I'm nerding out talking. I mean, and yeah, you might not be famous, but in the eyes of the beholder of the creativity, it's like, wow, it's what I'm trying to say is each person who I speak to who is creative, it's just I feel a sort of connection when I hear you share your stories, how you started, and something that grabbed my attention is that in this exploration in the story, not only about creativity but about your life, there were already like three times where you mentioned a person's name, like back in when you were 14, then a teacher who wasn't the best, or who said don't be funny, and then later on you mentioned the third teacher. So it sounds like there are some people who do make an impact in your life. And my question for you is there a certain person or maybe persons who made an impact on your love for writing or creativity, or maybe even just gave you that words of encouragement that you can keep going?
Yeah, there always are. Um, and this is why I think it's so important to change for the better the American culture surrounding education and to laud it and to hold it in the same esteem that we hold medicine, to hold it in the same esteem that we hold innovation in technology, to hold it in the same esteem that we hold innovation in economy and finance. We educate the people who do all of those things. There are people who educate well and who aspire to educate and only to educate, not to educate as a means to some other ends. And there are nefarious people in every field. And there are good people. There are good faith actors in every field. And the people I am naming are good faith actors and good faith actors in education. Um, and a lot of people who have made these impacts are good faith actors in education. And I have spent time as a good faith actor in education. Um, and it has enabled me to, I think, in my esteem, be a good faith creative. I mean, nobody can be exclusively a good faith actor all the time, when we aspire to be accountable for the times when we are bad faith actors and, change. But I also want to ask you, what's resonating with you so far? What are your favorite ways to be creative?
What are my favorite ways to be creative?
Yeah.
Me, honestly, I like engaging in conversations where it might not sound creative, but for me, it's it's creative in the way where I'm able to make not just the podcast, but just to hear somebody, and they're not intentionally storytelling. Yeah, you're storytelling, but it's not like they're making it up. I feel like it's an art to ask a person in a way where it's I'm not like, journalists, they're great, they do their job, but sometimes it can kind of come off as like an attacking question, or maybe it's then you'll see the person who's getting interviewed maybe like not want to speak. For me, what resonates with me is I just love listening. And as you're telling the story of little you reading the book or having someone read the book, in my mind there is a whole theater set up. And as each guest is sharing their past or their memories, in my mind, this theater is set up, the curtains are open, and the scene has started. And that's what I'm resonating is you're not. I mean, I have guests who talk about painting, who talk about maybe their books, but here in at this moment, we're talking about the spark of creativity that inspired Mon, and I'm just swimming in the ocean.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, Absolutely. The listening is so important. When I was learning, and I want to shout out another name, Wendy Deming, that someone who taught me the difference between channel one and channel two listening. So channel one, just listening, but less so listening than waiting for one's turn to talk. And then channel two listening, actually listening to seek to understand. Also, Alana Goldberg is an expert teacher, and I think she still teaches at somewhere where I've taught before, which is the Archer School for Girls here in LA. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I think I'm um what is it? Channel number 2, or is it channel?
Channel two, yeah, you're a good channel two listener.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I still seek to understand. This is like Well, anyways, uh, you did continue from high school. You did go on to Yale, if my research is correct.
Turned Harvard and Princeton down, baby. Let's go.
Okay. Something I see that happened is that you did continue writing, but you also got involved in writing a musical. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, yeah. I started writing it my first October break, like my first Thanksgiving break, actually, from college. And it basically started as my writing down experiences. It was kind of a form of journaling that would happen between my friends and me. And there's this principle in writing musicals where they should only sing when simply can't speak anymore. They shouldn't sing just because, oh, there should be a song, it's a musical. But when they are so impassioned that just speaking alone no longer serves. Of course, there are musicals where it's sung through, like a Les Mis type, where there's not any speaking scenes, but you understand. If it's a mix of speaking and singing, the times when they sing, it's because words don't serve anymore. And there were events, I mean, when you're an adolescent and you're going through things that are so moving that words no longer serve you, those are the exact type events when, figuratively in a musical, you begin to sing, you know? So it felt so intuitive to write down these events, to sort of journal these events in a musical writing format. And I had always written songs, sort of starting, I think, actually in elementary school just for fun, silly songs. I grew up sort of on Veggie Tales, actually. And then in middle school, I would start writing sort of emo type songs. And then in high school, I kept writing songs and we would perform them actually at, student showcases. And then, yeah, in this case, I started writing songs about what would happen to me and my friends, my sort of friend group of people that were really stressed out with but pursuing prestige and all the pitfalls of that, and being so used to being founding an identity on being exceptional, and now that you are just among other exceptionals, how do you found identity? And when that is your entire life and ethos, and you put yourself in those kinds of situations, that's not just going to be college. It's also going to be a number of professional situations you put yourself in. If you move to one of these cities that is the same way, New York, LA, Chicago, whatever the case is, if that's your professional situation, if that's your group of friends, if that's your partnership, if that's your family, these are issues you're going to confront again and again and again. And so, how do you move through a life like that? How do you stay alive? And a number of people, I sort of call this concept sort of the prestige parabola, where the pursuit of prestige can be in the short term a driver, and then after a while, I think for so many people, maybe even the majority of people, it not only ceases to drive, return, so to speak, but begins to do harm. And parabola technically goes like the inverse parabola, but I call it a parabola because the alliteration is cute. I'm not going to call it the PIP. That's a performance improvement plan. Anyway, you understand.
Would you say that your music is a blend of Veggie Tales and emo?
Oh my gosh, imagine? No. Thank God, no.
I'm just trying
I
to.
hope not.
I've never heard your music, so. And do you? It sounds like in your writing, it's very. Of course, every writer has their ways, but it sounds like it's very intentional, very thought out. Um, is there like an underlying theme in your all of your writing, or is each one just a separate theme type of
Yeah,
thing?
that's interesting. My writing is so varied. Uh, I did, I do a lot of personal essay. I do, I do. poetry. I do basically the only form that I have not yet explored publicly is fiction. Uh, So either long form or short form fiction, but not saying I wouldn't. There are ideas that I have. And so have done musicals, have done plays, have done like screenplays, have done pilots. There, you know, you mentioned the Substack. I've started posting pilots in chunks on the Substack, have posted some poetry to the stack, have posted some poetry to TikTok, have done spoken word, have done, um, have done these visual media, have done photography, have done, video, have done, you get it. So, and the thing is, I love to learn. I think as you move through a life, you become, well, hopefully, less scared of trying things because you realize that everybody is just a person who learned at some point, you know? So you're just like, oh, that guy learned it. I'll just learn it.
So, what was the name of your musical or musicals? I'm not sure.
It was called uh, Under Pressure, Undergraduate, Under the Influence, Underslept, Underfed, under, you know, under so many things.
And as a writer, do you do anything to get your ideas, or do they just flood your mind and you just write?
I think I go through epics. This is why I like the idea of a sine curve, of feeling like my ideas are coming out of an elephant, those Fisher Price or something Hasbro elephants from, and I'm just trying to catch them, or like lightning bugs in a lightning bug box. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're all gonna fly, and what if I don't catch them? And epics when I'm like, where do I get some ideas? And I think I there during the epics when I'm like, let's get some ideas. There are a couple different ways. I think there's something about return counting on the epics that were elephant epics or lightning bug epics that Queen, there were a lot of ideas that you put in voice notes or Apple Notes or notebooks or somewhere that you told to people or that you put in online accounts or something, 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 something that are going to give you ideas right now, or that you could 100% come back to, or that you just are not in an era of believing in yourself right now. But if you forced yourself to crank out what you perceive right now to be a C minus something, that is someone else's A plus plus. And you'll just be proud of yourself for cranking it out. On the other hand, I read something recently that's a quote from some titan, maybe I remember it was a Black woman writer. Maybe it was a Toni Morrison that was that said something to the effect of like a writer's block is a writer's block for a reason. You don't have to write through every writer's block. Maybe the implication being that's sort of an internalized capitalism problem, etc. Maybe you can just rest. So I try to maybe take note of that sometimes as well. To challenge myself, but also rest is productive.
Yes, and I like that because as you know, as a creative myself, well, my creativity is listening, but also it has to do with making the episode and doing a little bit of editing. There are times where yeah, it does help to take a little rest, take a break, and just be.
Yeah. Take a break. Let's go upstage. I haven't sung yet today, so that was airy breathy, but
Well, now I wanted to jump into another form of creativity. You ready?
yeah.
All right. I hope the audience is ready too, because we already have the art piece behind you, and that is a collage that you made. Can you tell us when was this made? Why was it made? And the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, there was an occasion when I was teaching, and I ended up in a visual arts department. And there was going to be a faculty arts show. I was teaching at this school in LA called the Crossroads School for Arts and Sciences. And I was teaching in two departments, visual arts and life skills. And I love teaching life skills, by the way. It was kind of like you were describing, like a storytelling, serial storytelling. Like you go around in a circle and you tell stories from your life as a way of sort of like group healing, social skills, practicing listening, your stuff, channel two listening. Anyway, point is, in the visual arts department, run by, yo, Janice, you're a queen, uh, runs that department real well. Talk about a department head who knows what she's doing. Janice, absolute goat. Heckin', there's an opportunity for faculty to be themselves and show off their own work and talk about their own work and actually be people, be the creatives that they are, in addition to providing their labor for an institution that owns it and will have it forever. So this yeah, made this for the faculty arts show because I was like, well, shoot, I guess yes, I am an artist, and it was an occasion for me to lean into that idea. Uh, so it was just kind of the pop culture as a pop culturalist that I was into at that time, and its meaning to me. So we've got, it was like very much the heyday of Euphoria, Barbie Ferreira, Meg the Stallion, Billie Eilish, Kim Petras. It was very much when that French lesbian movie. Oh my God, Portrait de la jeune fille en feu, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Janelle Monáe, queer love stories that made history. Ça commence par vous, queer love songs. Oh, Birds of Prey, amazing soundtrack. Ali X, uh, No Man's Land, Queer Beauty. And I changed a lot of the verbs I saw to gerunds, meaning ending in ing, to that mode. And I called the piece gerunds because, like, all of these processes are in progress. And that was the idea of the piece. And that's sort of the writing, as you know, I was sort of telling you as we were talking before we got started, that even though I love to write, what collaging does for me is that it is a wop, boppy, nonverbal medium, and it gives a break for my verbal brain. But I think when I was finishing this up, I wanted, Tim Gunn in fashion says, like, your hand should show in the outfit. It doesn't show in this outfit, but you can roll up a sleeve, or you can, roll up the cuff of your pants to show your hand in the outfit. And so I wanted my hand to show in the piece by putting some handwriting on it. So demanding more than representation alone, pushing beyond the obvious, refusing to settle for cosmetic pacifiers, and instead insisting on meaningful change. Phrases like that.
Well, is there a favorite part in that collage that you love the most?
One of the most personal parts of it is I put this paperweight from my high school. I went to this very preppy high school, and listen, I endorse the Lawrenceville School a lot. But it is like one of those, there's this kind of basically Ivy League of high schools on the East Coast, each of which is understood to feed to a certain college. Like, a lot of people send their kids to Lawrenceville because it feeds like between 20 and 30 kids to Princeton a year. But I smashed the glass of the, like, with a hammer. Like, I jumped on it with stilettos and like smashed it with a hammer so that it came off. And I glued the paperweight in the corner and like kind of graffitied it with stencil. I mean, with like Sharpie, and it says betraying your class. It had to be a germ, but it says betray your class essentially. Um, and betraying your class can mean a number of things, but like, you know, to me, just help people that did not win a class lottery, Mario mushroom. Just help. Do not class isolate. Do not only associate with other people who won a wheel of fortune. Um, and everything is relative. It's not like I'm a heckin' Rockefeller out here, but everything. Just help. Reach across class lines, bro. You can do
Well,
it.
well, thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering because we did talk about your musical and we've spoken about your collage, but I'm only aware of one musical and only of one collage. Are there more?
Yeah, so when I first got out here, the composer Julian Drucker, he makes music under Julian sometimes, and I wrote another one called The Better Rinder, and we put it up at the Wallace Annenberg in Beverly Hills, and that was a lot of fun. It was cool to put something up in LA, and uh, there's not really too much searchable about it other than we got to sit down with the composer lyricist of Wicked, Stephen Schwartz, for notes, and that was really cool. I have a video about that on the talk. So that was a musical career highlight. And he's a really nice dude. He's a really generous dude. The fact that he was down to sit down with new musical writers and like give notes, what a cool cat. And yeah, there are ideas that I have for musicals all the time. It's such an involved process. And I guess I've never personally taken the time to sit down to write for multiple instruments. So it would be either something I undertake entirely myself or sit down to do again with Julian or a variety of people. So it's something I'd love to do again because it's so rewarding, it's so satisfying. There are ideas I have, and so, it's not off the table.
So in your life, we see they're just sparks just flying everywhere when it comes to creativity. Um, but something that has appeared to me to be the constant has been writing. And when I first connected with you over on the talk, you had a question, should I write a book? Or I believe that was a question, or maybe it was, I am writing a book. I don't remember exactly, but it's been a few months. Have you written the book yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the book would be is a compilation of the writing and 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 writing that I have done. So if anybody, for example, I don't know, maybe the publicist at Penguin Random House that follows me on the stack would like, for example, to take the writing I've done and compile it into a book, that's not how it works. But Queen, if you'd like to help, I'd love, for example, a book. I'm showing how much of a noob I am by saying that that's how it works. She's literally a publicist, and that's not how it works. But I'd love to start this process, and I know it's up to me. But have I written enough for a book? Absolutely. Are books often made from exactly this material? 100%. Someone I look to for this kind of format is Samantha Irby. Have you read her books? They're called titles uh, like Quietly Hostile, Meaty, like Oh My Gosh, No Thank You, I think is one of the titles, sounds something like that. They all have like these neon covers with like a cute animal on the front, like a hedgehog or a skunk, like an animal that's cute, but like, and they are truly just like collections of, I mean, a lot of them are gorgeous, complex essays, and some of them are truly her responding to essentially a MySpace quiz. Like, what panties did you wear today? What is the last dessert you had? And it's like, you know what, Queen, you better do that and make your money. Like, heck yeah, put it in the book. So, yeah, essentially, the answer to your question is yes. Yes, I have. I just got to compile it and pitch it to people.
Okay, well, if ever it comes out, I hope I can get a copy.
Absolutely. That's on the house.
Thank you. Um, how do you want to see your creativity evolve in the future?
Yeah. I think something happening in the online sphere is that people are trying to figure out how to authentically create a space for other creatives to thrive within the context of their creativity. And I'll clarify what I mean. A number of people have something like a TikTok or a Substack, and in platform universe, it is difficult to create a community that genuinely feels like you are interested in their thriving, in their welfare. And the idea behind Sign, which is sort of, I imagine, an org that I am building through TikTok, Substack, it is a collective of creatives that can feel safe sharing ideas and promoting one another across platforms. And that is something that I desire on the internet because it is such a scary endeavor. It is so scary to be visible online, to be creative online, to put something out there, to watch the numbers, to pretend you're not watching the numbers because that hurts the numbers, to talk about caring about the numbers, even though it's understood that everybody cares about the numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it's so hard to communicate that you earnestly care about about creating this space, because the act of creating this space is so easily misunderstood as just a way to attract people to your product. And that's fair. So I think a number of people are trying to solve how to communicate or authentically create this kind of system. It is something that I too am trying to build and solve. So that is how I'd like to see my creativity grow, and the kind of structure that I'd like to grow my creativity within, whether that is within Platformverse or outside of it. I might go ahead and do something like create a way outside of Platformverse to do that. That's something I'm noodling on at the moment with someone from Sign.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Are there any other creatives out there that you would like to give a shout out to?
To you, I'll be going through all the other interviews that you've done so far, because there's something that I really appreciate about how long it takes to edit. Oh my heck. And that is the thing about all this video editing and people. I think when I was first coming on to Substack and they were talking about, oh, the influx of TikTokers and that's not a skill. This is a skill. Queen, it's all skills. All skills. Editing is creative. Oh my heck is editing creative.
Well,
So yeah, shout out to you and for taking the proactive initiative to make this happen, your organization, um, your platforming creatives, your being down to support others' work. That's a meaningful endeavor. So shout out to you.
wow, thanks. I never had that. So thank you. It really got me blushing here a little bit, sweating. Um, Thank you. And now I have my concluding question, and that is, Mon, why is creativity so important for you?
There's this, not to do this, but there's this piece on the stack. I think I might have labeled it like 80th birthday speech, but my the PhD that I'm in is labeled something like leadership, blah, 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 like global leadership and change. That's what it's called. I so have feelings about its title that I called it leadership, blah, blah, blah. But basically my personal statement for the program said something to the effect of a leader that seeks to create rather than destruct affirms rather than intimidates those who join them. And politically, socially, intrapersonally, just for the health of your cells, so that your cells create that which is good rather than that which destroys. I think creativity is affirming. You know, you create, the reason I shouted you out is you create a product that affirms. I forget whether we were already recording by the time you said the word positivity, but you create non-toxic positivity. You posit something that affirms. I think about the word positivity in its etymological sense. You posit something helpful. You do not seek to negate. Like, and I think about negativity. Okay, negativity. What is it? What are we negating? What are we positing when we assert positivity, and what are we negating when we are negative? And so, why is creativity important? Well, let's create things that help one another get through the human experience. We can create things that help our brief time on earth be pleasant. It's not eternal, but it is kind of long, and it could be more pleasant than it is right now. That's an easy solve. I mean, it's not an easy solve, but there could be more ease than we currently have. And you're positing something that helps.
Well, thank you so much, Mon, for sharing your creative journey from childhood to who you are today. And I can't wait to see the next chapter. And I hope I can, um, you know, live long enough to see it. I don't know, because our life is short, life is long, life can be gone in an instant. And I know we see that every day. But let's stay on the positive. I'm a realist kind of, but like let's stay on the positive side. And we have a beautiful cat here to kind of steal the show. Can you introduce your lovely Wolfie, I believe?
100% great memory. This is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Wolfie for short. And he keeps me creative because he keeps my serotonin up.
Okay. Well, thank you for the what do you call it? For the cameo. And
Yeah.
to conclude this episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mon. Where can people read your Substack or find your stuff on the internet?
Yeah, 100%. On Substack, I'm just at sine curve, like the trigonometric wave. And then on TikTok, I'm at sine curve discussions. That's me.
All right. So go and give Mon, Sine Curve, a follow. And for those in the audience, please, if you enjoy this episode, please feel free to share it to others so that people can dive into the creative universe of our guest today, of Mon's creative universe. Also, if you like this episode, please feel free to subscribe, to share, to like, whether it's on YouTube or on Spotify. And if you would like to, you can help me because doing this podcast does take a lot of work. And if you want to help me stay a little bit more awake, you can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/truth7. That helps me to keep this podcast going and helps me to stay positive. so, so with that, I wanted to thank the audience for tuning in, and a special thank you for today's guest, Mon, for sharing your love for creativity.
Thank you, dude.